Alright, I'm back from the store.
Did you get my snacks?
Yeah. Here you go.
Dope.
Now if you would excuse me, I have a video to make about the best Sonic game.
I thought you weren't doing Mania yet.
The other one.
You already made a video on Sonic 2.
Excuse me? I must have not cleaned my ears good enough this morning. It sounded like you said Sonic 2 was the best Sonic game.
That's exactly what I said. It's a solid experience from beginning to end with very few dull or frustrating moments, unlike Sonic 3, which has its fair share of bad levels.
Sonic 2 is great, but 3 just improves so much on 2 that it's objectively the better game, and if you would let me...
Look, I don't feel like arguing right now. Just make your video expressing your wrong opinion of Sonic 3.
Fine, I will. Also, I tried eating one of those poffins, and I'm not telling you which one! I think we can safely say that Sonic 2 is a huge success for Sega, yeah? It's fondly remembered as one of the greatest video games of all time for a reason. Top that off with it went on to become one of the best-selling games on the Sega Genesis, only beaten out by Sonic 1. Needless to say, Sonic Team had quite the task ahead of them in order to make an even better game than Sonic 2. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 entered development at the Sega Technical Institute around January of 1993, not long after Sonic 2 hit stores worldwide. Sonic Team wanted to go bigger than ever and requested that they be given an enhancement chip to bring Sonic into the third dimension. The Sega Virtual Processing Chip was the one and only enhancement chip made for the Sega Genesis and allowed the console to display primitive 3D graphics. The only game that actually used the chip was the Genesis version of Virtua Racing, and there is a big reason as to why it's the only game that used it. Virtua Racing on the Sega Genesis costed $100 at launch. Yikes. If I can give it anything, these are impressive graphics that make a similar racing game on the Super Nintendo, Stunt Race FX, look like a pale imitation. The chip also just wouldn't be ready until after Sonic 3's planned release, so development on the game had to restart, with the plan now being to further improve on what Sonic 1, 2, and CD had already established. On top of what changes were made to the formula in Sonic 2, Sonic 3 would change things further by adding new mechanics, larger levels, more levels to boot, and integrate the game's story into the gameplay via level cutscenes. Sonic 3 was set to be Sonic Team's most ambitious game yet, and development was going smoothly until a letter came down from the higher-ups. Sega had struck a deal with McDonald's to produce a line of promotional toys for Sonic 3, and just like that, the release date was moved much closer to February of 1994. As if to top all of that off, the game would require a large-as-shit cartridge that could store 32 megabits of data, which would cost way too much money to manufacture, and the writing was pretty much on the wall. Sonic 3 had to be reduced in scope, with the final game only containing 6 zones. Compare that to Sonic 2, which had 11 zones, and I think you see the problem here. However, the folks at Sonic Team didn't want their hard work on the scrapped zones to go to waste, so they continued work on the scrapped portion of Sonic 3, with that half of the game now being called Sonic and Knuckles. I assume to make up for splitting Sonic 3 in half, the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge was manufactured with a cartridge slot on top, which you could plug Sonic 3 into and play the game as intended. This version of the game is dubbed Sonic 3 and Knuckles, although most people still refer to it as Sonic 3 because, they were originally one game, that's how they're intended. This was possible thanks to Sega's lock-on technology! Which could patch the Sonic 3 ROM in real time when connected to a Sonic and Knuckles cartridge. Sonic Team took this a step further by allowing players to plug Sonic 2 in and play through that whole game as Knuckles. This is most often compared to an early form of modern-day DLC, which, yeah, I agree with that sentiment. You could not lock Sonic 1, or any other Genesis game for that matter, onto Sonic and Knuckles, which is kind of a missed opportunity. Imagine playing Miss Pac-Man as Sonic characters. That would be cool as shit. No, instead, you get to play Infinite Blue Sphere, which is this game's special stage, and this shit can reach the millions in combinations. A part of me wonders if there's some poor soul who discovered this back in 1994 and is still trying to play all of these to this day. Poor bastard probably hasn't even gotten halfway done yet. Sonic 3 released in February of 1994 in America, with Japan not getting it until May later that year. Sonic and Knuckles were released in October of '94 in both regions, the same day in fact. Sonic & Knuckles is often regarded as one of the greatest video games of all time, with fans being split on if either this game or Sonic 2 are better, which I think should speak to the overwhelming quality of these games. As for me, I'll be upfront, I can go either way on this game or Sonic Mania, it just depends on my mood that week. With all of that said and done, I'm ready to get into this game, so without further ado... Sonic 3 introduces a lot of new elements to this series, the most important of which is a save feature! You have several save slots to choose from, and you can even do a no-save run if that's your thing. When starting a new save, you get to choose which character you want to play as. Let's ignore Amy for this video, and just focus on the characters that were available in the original game. Sonic plays like how he did in Sonic 2, but now he has yet another new move. While the super peel out from CD is gone, you now have the Insta-Shield. Press A when in the air, and this quick little flash will appear around Sonic, which grants him a few frames of invincibility and extends his attack box by a bit. You can have Sonic and Tails partnered up like before, allowing for some co-op action, but if you're by yourself, then you can actually still get Tails to help you. Look up and press A twice, and Tails will begin to fly. Sonic can grab onto him, allowing them to reach places that they couldn't otherwise. Speaking of Tails, he finally has the ability to fly when played as, and he even now has the ability to swim underwater! It's for these reasons that Tails is often considered the easy mode of the game. Knuckles the Echidna makes his debut in this game, and he has some unique aspects of his own. For starters, he can glide, and use his giant fist to climb walls. However, he can't jump as high as Sonic and Tails, so he actually has unique routes in a lot of the levels in this game that only he can access. As you can probably guess, Knuckles is often referred to as the hard mode of this game, since his routes tend to be a lot more treacherous than the ones Sonic and Tails can take. Knuckles' story actually happens after Sonic and Tails', which is pretty interesting, no matter how much Sega tried to tell us otherwise with Sonic 4. At the end of Sonic 2, the Death Egg crash lands into the floating Angel Island. The resulting impact of the space station causes the island to fall into the ocean below. Not long after, Tails gets a strange reading of energy somewhere on the island, so Sonic and Tails head there on the tornado, with Sonic jumping off and rushing onto the shore as Supersonic because Blood's got shit to do that night. But then... Stop it, we're not doing that! This is Knuckles the Echidna, an inhabitant of Angel Island who is seemingly working with Dr. Robotnik. He uppercuts Supersonic so hard that it knocks the Chaos Emeralds right out of him, with Knuckles grabbing the emeralds and running off of them. Welcome to Angel Island Zone, a tropical jungle zone that gets set on fire partway through. I hope Knuckles is okay with Robotnik doing that. It's a really neat zone that I wish we got to see more often. Fucking anything is better than Green Hill Zone for the 20th time. It's here you'll get to see the new additions and changes to the gameplay, however, so let's get into that. First is the shields, of which there are now 3 variants of. The fire shield protects you from fire attacks as well as lava, and gives Sonic this dash attack. The bubble shield lets you breathe underwater and gives Sonic a bounce attack. Lastly, and the most useful of the bunch, is the electric shield. Electrical hazards aren't too common in this game, but the shield has magnetic properties, meaning rings will magnetize to the player when you're near them. It also gives Sonic access to a double jump, and, just so we're clear, only Sonic can use these additional moves granted by each shield. Next up is how zones are presented. We're still on 2 acts, that's good, but each act is now longer to compensate, and the acts now connect, so you'll begin Act 2 right where Act 1 ended, for the most part. There's now a mini-boss at the end of each Act 1, and after beating it, you can actually juggle the signpost and get it to land at specific spots to dig up items for the next act, which is a really cool addition. Lastly, each act now has its own music. While the zone has a general motif, the composition changes between acts, which as a music person, I adore. When crossing a checkpoint with a certain amount of rings, these sparkles will appear above them like in Sonic 2. However, these don't take you to the special stages, these take you to one of 3 bonus stages. First is the slots one, which is based on the Sonic 1 special stages, where you can gamble to earn more rings. Next is the gumball machine, where you can try to get yourself a shield or more rings. And finally is the orb climb stage, where you can fling yourself on these orbs to try to get more rings, a shield, or even an extra life/coins. Finally, we can talk about the special stages. These no longer require 50 rings to enter. Now it's as simple as finding a hidden giant ring in the level in order to access one, and this right here is my favorite means of getting special stages in the whole series. It's not complicated, and it plays into the whole exploration factor of Sonic. Blue Sphere is the special stage type of this game, and it's probably my second favorite type of special stage in the whole series. You have to collect these blue spheres and turn them red. Your main objective is to get all of the blue spheres in the stage to win the Chaos Emerald. By outlining a group of spheres, it'll cause them all to turn into rings. Rings in the special stages are kind of useless. Collecting every ring in the stage grants you a continue, which is utterly worthless unless you're playing on no save mode. There are other sphere types here, like these bumpers and these yellow launcher spheres, but really, just collect the blue spheres and avoid the red ones, as those will put you out of the special stage, and no, playing as Knuckles doesn't mean get the red spheres, it still says get the blue ones, you dummy, you absolute buffoon, you moron idiot child, fuck you. Sonic automatically moves in these, so you just have to worry about turning him and making him jump. The longer you spend in these special stages, the faster he gets, and while yes, it is nerve-wracking, it's also really fun and kind of exhilarating. These aren't too challenging either, they feel fair. When I fuck up, I feel like it's my fault and not the game's fault, unlike Sonic 1 and 2, where the physics either don't want to cooperate with me, or because I get blindsided by a bomb. Of course, getting all 7 Chaos Emeralds grants you access to Super Sonic, but also if you're playing as Knuckles, then he gets his own super form as well. Not Tails, though. What's up with that? Angel Island Zone is really fun to run through, lots of high speeds, and you can keep that speed going through the platforming sections if you're good enough at the game. There's also some water here, which I just want to state really quickly that if you drown in Angel Island Zone, please never contact me. Act 1 sees the zone get set on fire by the mini-boss partway through and... what? Also, this part here genuinely caught me off guard. The bridge just didn't have collision when I played as Sonic, but in my Tails playthrough it did, and I have no clue why. The zone ends with this bomber attempting to get Sonic and Tails and missing every single time, and since I had the fire shield, I could just bully Robotnik in this boss fight. A bridge drops, but Knuckles comes in and destroys it, dropping Sonic and Tails in the Hydro City zone. And yes, it is Hydro City, not Hydrocity.
If it was Hydro City, then they would have put a space in the name.
If you don't shut up right now, I will put you in a bong and smoke you. Hydro City has tons of pathways, a lot of which love to keep you moving at high speeds even when underwater. Overall, I love this zone, it's probably my favorite water level thus far. Act 2 has this wall chase segment towards the start that always makes me nervous, and I love these spinning drums, although this zone isn't all peachy. It's the Hermit Crab Badniks. I hate the Hermit Crab Badniks. They always get in some cheap-ass shots. I mean, seriously, look at this. Marble Garden Zone is just kind of here. Just a standard Sonic zone, in my opinion, with lots of spikes. The only real standout moments in the zone for me is the spinning top that is frustrating to control in the air, but the moment that fucking thing touches grass, it just... The Act 2 boss for Sonic and Tails is really creative, though. Robotnik destroys the ground, so Tails has to carry Sonic for the whole fight. Carnival Night Zone is... what the... This isn't right. Hang on a second, I need to check something. No, they couldn't have. They wouldn't. Oh my god, they did! Okay, so we need to stop for a second to address the music of Sonic 3. Masato Nakamura didn't return the composed music for this game, and thus several artists were brought on to fill that void. While all these folks contributed fine works for the game, the two most notable names attached to Sonic 3's soundtrack are Brad Buxer and Michael Jackson. Yes, while he went uncredited, the King of Pop did make music for Sonic 3. In fact, he seemingly reused several songs for his own albums. Carnival Night turned into Jam, the Act 1 boss theme was reused for Blood on the Dance Floor, and the credits theme got turned into Stranger in Moscow. Even Launch Base, which I don't think got reused, just has Jackson's signature style written all over it. Things got even more muddied with Brad Buxer. He was in a band called the Jetsons who made several songs, some of which would ultimately go unreleased. So he pretty much took one of those unreleased songs, Hard Times, and converted it to the Genesis sound chip for Ice Cap Zone. This then created a whole fucking debacle several years later when Jackson's estate became super trigger happy with lawsuits, and a bunch of the Jetsons' unreleased songs got officially released, one of which just so happened to be Hard Times. Do I need to further explain why this created a legal shitstorm around Sonic 3?
You mind if I take over for this next bit?
Sure, go ahead. I could use a drink. Do you want anything?
Just give me a water, thanks. As a result of this, Sonic 3 and Knuckles would rarely see a re-release after 2011. However, when Sega announced Sonic Origins, they stated that Sonic 3 and Knuckles would be a part of the collection, which was great. However, it was stated that the offending tracks in question would be replaced, which was absolutely understandable. Jun Senoue, who actually got his start making Sonic music with Sonic 3 back in the day, would compose new music while making it sound like it was actually from the Genesis. A common complaint about Senoue's Genesis sound-alikes is that they all just sound bad. These aren't even new songs, they're all taken from the old Windows port of the game, and even then, those songs have Genesis counterparts that sounded genuinely really good in the Sonic 3 prototype that leaked a few years back. Take a listen really quick. Needless to say, this pissed a lot of people off.
Okay, I'm back. So, I got your water, but the store only had Dasani? Is that fine?
Do you still have that bottle of skooma from Tamriel?
Yeah, top shelf, back corner. I wonder if he can get drunk. He is a god after all. Okay, where did he leave off at, Oh, okay. Yeah, these new songs blow. Jun Senoue added a new track for Supersonic, but... Sonic 4 sounding ass. If you're playing this game on PC, do yourself a favor and get this mod, the definitive Sonic 3 OST by Pimpuigi. I'll have it linked down in the description. They did God's work here, and also, compliments to their take on the Supersonic theme. Carnival Night is a fun zone to run through. I kinda hate how many times I got crushed here though, some of which I swear weren't my fault. Also, you cannot forget the Barrel of Doom! Just look up and down to get past it, that's all you have to do. That's it, on to Ice Cap. God, they really are going all out on the spectacle here. I really love just how they managed to get the ice to look in this zone, and the level design just loves to keep us moving along with fast platforming. Launch Base Zone is the final zone for the Sonic 3 portion of the game. It's definitely the hardest zone in this half of the game, filled with crushers, spikes, and also lasers. Act 2 comes to a close with Knuckles getting wrecked as Robotnik begins to relaunch the Death Egg. The first phase of this boss fight is... Phase 2 is the Big Arms fight, and while as Supersonic it is piss easy, when you come through here and aren't Super, it can be pretty challenging if you don't know what to do. After defeating Robotnik, the Death Egg plummets back down on the Angel Island with Robotnik retreating to it, so our work here isn't done yet. At the start of the next zone, Mushroom Hill, you'll see Knuckles leaving this hidden room. If you go down there, you'll find this flashing special ring. This warps you to the Master Emerald Altar, where you lose access to the Chaos Emeralds, but they get transformed into the Super Emeralds with 7 more special stages required to fully power those. Mushroom Hill isn't as difficult as the latter half of Sonic 3, and that's understandable. These are, whether we like it or not, 2 separate games that can be combined into one, so expect the next few zones to be not as difficult. Also, if you know where to look, Mushroom Hill has a lot of special rings, enough to where you can actually get all 7 Super Emeralds powered up before the Act 2 boss, and the reward for doing so is fucking awesome! Hypersonic, Super Tails, and Hyper Knuckles. Hypersonic has unlimited air when underwater, and has this mid-air dash complete with this screen flash that completely destroys every badnik on screen. Super Tails is busted. I assume to make up for him not getting a super form with the Chaos Emeralds, Super Tails gets this
Flicky Army of Death
that buttfuck everything. They make the boss fights a complete and utter joke. Lastly is Hyper Knuckles, who not only glides faster, but also causes an earthquake when colliding into a wall. These never return, by the way, so enjoy these while you can. Flying Battery has to be my favorite zone in the whole game. It's fast, it's tense, and the music just fucks. The mini-boss is funny to deal with, and the Act 2 boss is pathetic. God, especially as Super Tails, I don't even have to move. Once it's over, we go from what's probably the best zone in the game to what is absolutely the worst zone in the game. Sandopolis Zone is so boring. It could just be the desert aesthetic, but it's not helped by the fact that not only does the Act 1 boss take forever, but both acts take for fucking ever too. Across all 3 playthroughs I did for this game, I spent a combined total of, and I did the math here, I'm not joking, a combined total of 48 minutes and 16 seconds in this one zone alone, with the Knuckles run taking the longest. And what the fuck happened here? God, okay, so Lava Reef is next, and Act 1 is fine. It's the lava level of the game, but in Act 2, the lava turns to cooled rock, and the zone takes on a more mystical feel while still being fire-themed. The boss fight in Act 2, though, fuck this fight. It's not that it's hard, it just takes too long since you can't hurt Robotnik directly, and you need to have his spiked bombs hit him. Hidden Palace is not the same Hidden Palace from Sonic 2, as this one contains little level and lots of rings. You can also get Hypersonic if you know what you're doing, and just fucking massacre poor old Knuckles. Also, take note of that mural for later. Knuckles rushes off as Robotnik betrays him and steals the Master Emerald to power the Death Egg. This was always Robotnik's plan. He tricked Knuckles into thinking Sonic was going to steal the Master Emerald, when in reality, he just wanted Knuckles away so he could steal it instead. After a bit of electrical shock therapy, Knuckles decides to help our heroes and takes them to Sky's Sanctuary Zone. Sonic and Tails look on as the Death Egg launches into the planet's atmosphere once more. Knuckles extends this drop bridge for the duo before telling them to go on without him. Sky's Sanctuary is only one act, and it isn't long either. However, Sonic and Tails encounter Mecha Sonic Mark II, who tries using previous tactics of the Doctors to take down Sonic, only to be defeated each time. This culminates in a final battle between the robot doppelganger and Sonic, with our hero coming out on top. However, Mecha doesn't explode when defeated. I wonder what that's about. Sonic and Tails make their way onto the Death Egg, which is now a fully fledged stage, rather than 2 rooms with 2 bosses like in Sonic 2. This zone is littered with death traps, electrical shockers, anti-gravity, and these After defeating the Act 2 boss, Sonic and Tails chase Robotnik until he hops into this giant robot suit and tries to smash the two with its fingers, so yeah, that's right, bust out the metal bat because we're breaking Robotnik's fingers today. Phase 2 sees the mech chasing Sonic and Tails while shooting fire out of its nose and using the Master Emerald to fire a frickin' laser at you. Just bop it in the Emerald enough times and the mech is destroyed, but Robotnik makes one last attempt to flee with the Master Emerald, with this one segment killing me more times than I would honestly like to admit. Eventually though, Robotnik drops the Emerald and the Death Egg explodes. Now if you didn't get all the Super Emeralds, then the game ends here with the bad ending, but if you did, then welcome to the Doomsday Zone, where you have to maneuver hypersonic through this asteroid field to catch up to Robotnik and destroy this ship of his. Afterwards, he makes his final getaway in the Death Egg robot from Sonic 2, and once you hit that enough times, Robotnik is out of options as Hypersonic makes off with the Master Emerald. Sonic and Tails return the Master Emerald to Knuckles, which allows Angel Island to fly high into the sky once more, ending Sonic 3. For Sonic and Tails, yes, we can finally go into the Knuckles campaign! After Sonic and Tails leave Angel Island, one of Robotnik's egg robos seemingly gains sentience, and begins wreaking havoc on Angel Island, with Knuckles having to destroy it and put an end to this madness for good. The level progression is the same, however Knuckles has tons of exclusive routes throughout the whole game, and even some unique boss fights. I have to admit, I was getting tired of this game by the end of the Knuckles run. Fuck, Lava Reef was genuinely pissing me off, but I made it and got this guy's Sanctuary, where Mecha Sonic destroys the egg robo that was helping him the whole time, and uses the power of the Master Emerald to go super, with Knuckles finding moments to land hits on him, and eventually Mecha Sonic goes down and explodes. This destroys the platform that the Emerald was on, however Sonic returns, coming in clutch to save Knuckles and the Master Emerald, ending Sonic 3 for the second time. Before we get into my final thoughts though, we do have a 2-player versus mode to touch on, and it's fine. You have unique bite-sized levels, so it doesn't lag to shit like in Sonic 2, and no character for some reason has their unique abilities, but hey, it is what it... Is that fucking City Escape? At the end of the day, I think whether you prefer this game or Sonic 2 or hell even Sonic Mania is ultimately up to personal preference. Sonic 2 has more of a consistent feel, while Sonic 3 feels more grandiose and more like an adventure. Sonic 3 definitely has its bad moments. Sandopolis is the go-to example for me as long as I live, but I don't let that detract from just how much I enjoy playing this game. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a blast of a game that offers you tons of quality content that I think most Sonic fans can enjoy. please play Sonic 3 and Knuckles, whether it be on Origins, the Genesis original, or by any other means. I assure you, you will have a great time. Just, if you're playing on Origins, and specifically on PC, get that mod I mentioned. It's linked down below, so go for it. With all that said, I hope you have a great day or night. Peace.